The lights blazed over Cape Town's Grand West Arena, July 18, 2025, as the Professional Fighters League carved history, planting its flag in African soil for the first time, a moment meant to echo the dreams of a continent. Yet, in the heart of this celebration, one absence cast a shadow so heavy it threatened to fracture a vision. Francis Ngannou, the man anointed as PFL Africa's chairman, the heavyweight titan whose own journey from Cameroon to global stardom was supposed to inspire a generation, was nowhere to be seen. PFL founder Don Davis, his voice sharp with frustration, didn't hold back. "I'm disappointed," he said, the words slicing through the post-fight buzz like a blade. "This is part of his vision. We worked for 2 years." Ngannou, the predator, the man who crossed deserts and defied odds, stood absent from the very stage he'd promised to uplift. The inaugural PFL Africa event wasn't just a fight card, it was a statement. Announced in May 2025, the league launched with a stacked lineup, headlined by a middleweight title clash where Costello Van Steenis stunned former Bellator king Johnny Eblen with a submission in the final seconds of their 5-round war. British star Dakota Ditcheva solidified her reign as PFL's top female fighter, outclassing Sumiko Inaba for a unanimous decision. The card brimmed with African talent, 32 fighters from 14 nations, heavyweights and bantamweights kicking off a tournament to crown the first PFL Africa champions. Jashel Ticha Awa from Cameroon faced South Africa's Justin Clark. Senegal's Abdullah Kane battled Morocco's Mohamed Ben Yahia. Khabib Nurmagomedov, the UFC legend, even flew in to support his Dagestani prospects, his presence amplifying the event's global weight. But Ngannou, the face of this African dream, was missing, leaving fighters, fans, and PFL brass reeling. Ngannou's story is the stuff of legend, a saga of survival and defiance. Born in Batié, Cameroon in 1986, he grew up in poverty, working in sand mines by age 10. His dream of combat sports led him on a 14-month odyssey across the Sahara, crossing borders, enduring imprisonment in Spain, and arriving in Paris homeless but unbowed. He found MMA at 26, training under Fernand Lopez at the MMA Factory. His pro debut in 2013 was a knockout. By 2015, he was in the UFC, debuting with a KO over Luis Enrique at UFC on Fox 17. Ngannou's rise was meteoric. 6 straight wins, including a spinning backfist KO of Alistair Overeem at UFC 218 in 2017, earned him a title shot. Stipe Miocic out-wrestled him at UFC 210 in 2018, exposing holes, but Ngannou rebounded, knocking out Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, and Jairzinho Rosenstruck in a combined 242. At UFC 260 in 2021, he flattened Miocic in the second round, claiming the heavyweight title. He defended against Cyril Gane at UFC 270 in 2022, winning by decision despite a torn MCL and ACL, showcasing newfound grappling. But Ngannou's UFC tenure ended in chaos. Contract disputes over pay, fight frequency, and freedom to box boiled over. He walked away in January 2023, stripped of the title, a free agent at 36. The PFL swooped in, signing him in May 2023 with a deal that wasn't just about fighting: equity ownership, a seat on the Global Advisory Board, and chairman of PFL Africa, a role he called an honor to shape MMA in his homeland. Ngannou debuted in boxing first, facing Tyson Fury in October 2023, dropping the Gypsy King but losing a controversial split decision. Anthony Joshua stopped him in 2 rounds in March 2024. Back in MMA, he returned at PFL's Battle of the Giants on October 19, 2024, obliterating Renan Ferreira in the first round to claim the PFL heavyweight title. It was emotional. Ngannou dedicated the win to his late son Kobe, who passed at 15 months from a brain malformation. Since then, silence in the cage, with whispers of a boxing match with Deontay Wilder next. If you're gripped by these raw stories from the fight world, hit that subscribe button for MMA Arena. We bring you the heart and soul of MMA like no one else. Don Davis's disappointment wasn't just personal, it was a crack in the foundation of PFL Africa's mission. Ngannou's role as chairman wasn't ceremonial. He was meant to be the beacon, the proof that African fighters could rise without fleeing the continent. His absence stung because it contradicted the narrative he'd championed. "You have to ask Francis why he wasn't there," Davis told ESPN, his tone betraying a sense of betrayal. "This is part of his vision, so that all those fighters don't have to leave like he did." Johnny Eblen, speaking to TalkSport, noted he didn't see Ngannou all fight week, a sentiment echoed by fans and media who expected the Predator's towering presence at promotional events. On X, at Bobby_S_Axelrod questioned Ngannou's commitment. Makes you wonder, how committed is Francis Ngannou to the PFL long-term? If the UFC came calling, would he jump? At Andy Hickey MMA was harsher, calling Ngannou a charlatan and crediting Khabib for doing more for PFL Africa by showing up. At Return Boaks reported the criticism in French, amplifying Davis's blunt words, "Don Davis n'a pas mâché ses mots." The sentiment was clear, and Ngannou's no-show felt like a betrayal of the continent he vowed to uplift. The heavyweight division across MMA has been a turbulent landscape, and Ngannou's absence ties into its broader narrative. In the UFC, Ngannou's exit in 2023 left the title vacant. John Jones claimed it at UFC 285, submitting Cyril Gane in the first round, but an injury sidelined him. Tom Aspinall won the interim belt at UFC 295, KO Sergey Pavlovich, and defended against Curtis Blades at UFC 304 in July 2024. Jones returned to beat Miocic at UFC 309 in November 2024, then retired in June 2025, elevating Aspinall to undisputed champ. Jones re-entered the USADA pool in August 2025 for a potential White House card in 2026, shaking things up again. In PFL, Ngannou's win over Ferreira made him champ, but the division lacks depth. Shamil Gaziev and Dontel Mays are top names, but PFL's format, tournaments, super fights, leans on star power like Ngannou's. UFC matchmaking often prioritizes draws over merit, delaying Aspinall's unification for Jones-Miocic legacy fights. PFL, meanwhile, uses Ngannou's name for global expansion, but his absence risks diluting that strategy. Rankings shift fast. Pavlovich fell after losses. Gane rebounded with wins. Alexander Volkov climbed with knockouts. Ngannou's next MMA fight could reshape PFL's heavyweight scene, but boxing pulls him away. Fan reactions were split, reflecting Ngannou's complex legacy. At Dovi Simu MMA quoted Davis's disappointment, sparking debate. Some, like at MMA Ecosystem, noted Ngannou's absence from PFL's broadcast, wondering if he was even in the arena. Others defended him, citing personal tragedies, the loss of his son in 2024 and a 2025 motorcycle accident in Cameroon where a 17-year-old girl died. Essentially Sports reported fans accusing Ngannou of scamming PFL, while others argued his grief justified his absence. At TalkSport amplified the criticism, and Ngannou slammed for missing own promotion's debut event. Yet supporters on Reddit's MMA threads urged empathy, pointing to his emotional win over Ferreira, dedicated to his son. Media outlets like Bloody Elbow noted Ngannou's silence since the event, leaving fans hungry for answers. Dana White, ever the provocateur, jabbed at PFL's deal with Ngannou, saying on Essentially Sports, they signed a shitty contract with a guy that doesn't deliver numbers. Speculation swirled about a UFC return, fueled by coach Eric Nixick's comments, but Ngannou shut it down on X. "Did I say I'm ever coming back?" A potential Ngannou versus Wilder boxing match looms, but an MMA return in PFL could be seismic. Against someone like Gaziev, a wrestler with heavy hands, Ngannou's fight would test his takedown defense, refined since his Gane win. Ngannou, 6'4" with an 83-inch reach, thrives on raw power, knockouts in 12 of 18 wins, including Overeem's uppercut and Miocic's left hook. His grappling, shown against Gane, counters wrestling with trips and clinch control. Gaziev, 6'2", would pressure with takedowns, aiming to exhaust Ngannou's 260-pound frame. Ngannou's game plan: keep range, land bombs, sprawl to avoid the ground. Gaziev must close distance, clinch, drag it to the mat. Significance: a win solidifies Ngannou as PFL's cornerstone, boosting Africa's profile. A loss could stall the league's momentum, especially post-absence drama. Alternatively, a super fight with Dontel Mays tests Ngannou's durability against a durable striker. Either way, PFL needs Ngannou in the cage to validate their investment. Imagine the scene. Cape Town's arena, alive with chants, the octagon gleaming under global eyes. PFL Africa was meant to be Ngannou's homecoming, not just as a fighter, but as a leader for a continent's aspirations. His absence left a void. Fighters like Awa and Nabele carried the torch, but the Predator's shadow loomed large. Now the question hangs heavy. Will Ngannou step up, return to the cage, and fulfill the promise he made to Africa? Or will boxing's allure